Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're diving into the ultimate jungle guide for Riktor, my man. What I think is probably one of the top two junglers in the game right now. No kidding. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But let's go ahead and dive into the abilities. Well, forgot to talk about that. Here's my thoughts on Riktor in the jungle. Currently, I think that the support role is actually being filled very, very well by kind of like the enchanter supports. So some of the smaller supports like Muriel, Decker, and Belica are actually doing a lot of work in that support role. Therefore, I think the tanks are slightly relegating away towards other roles. Now, don't get me wrong, Riktor and Steel are still phenomenal supports, and I definitely think they're worth running there, but I'm starting to feel a bit of a shift with the strength of Decker specifically, where some of those characters are maybe better suited for like offlane jungle, and with Steel and Riktor specifically, I don't really see them as the best offlaners in the world, so I think that Riktor is a phenomenal jungler. Thank you so much for indulging in my mistake and my lack of attention to detail in order to describe what the fuck I was trying to say. We're going to hit the practice range, talk about some itemization and how to play the character. So we have the passive Riot Shield. Riktor passively shields himself for 12% of his maximum health. The shield lasts until destroyed and refreshes if Riktor has not taken damage in the last 8 seconds. Whip is his auto attack. Whiplash is his alternate ability. Riktor launches a chain forward, attaching to the first enemy hit, dealing 50, 80, 110, 140, 170 with 100% magic scaling, and then 8% of the target's maximum health magic damage and pulling them towards him. Cooldown is 19, 18, 17, 16, 15 with the cost 120. This is the skill you are going to max in the jungle. We're going to talk about skill maxing and priority here in a little bit, or as we go. Shock Therapy, primary ability, swing and electric whip, dealing 60, 100, 140, 180, 220 plus 40% magic damage to magic, or 40% magic scaling magic damage to all enemies hit and silencing them for 1.25 seconds. Cooldown set at 8. Cost is going to be 40, 45, 50, 55, and 60. And this is the absolute last thing you want to max because it's got that static cooldown. So even if you max it, you're going to increase the damage a little bit, but you don't really need to do so. You're also going to raise the cost. So this is the absolute last thing you want to max. Electrocute. This is the secondary ability, or the E. Emit an electrical aura, granting Riktor 10% movement speed and dealing 110, 155, 190, 235, 280 with an 8% health scaling, 60% magical scaling, magic damage to all enemies nearby or nearby enemies over 5 seconds. Cooldown 10, 9.5, 9, 8.5, 8. Cost goes 60 up to 100. This is going to be the second ability you want to max, and for the sake of saying, since I'm already talking about it, you want to start with Electrocute in the jungle, and then you want to max the Whiplash, the right click, right mouse button. Skewer is the ultimate ability. Unleash a torrent of chains from Riktor, dealing 125, 175, 225, 50% magic scaling, magical damage to all enemies hit in front of him, and suppressing them for 1.5 seconds. After the suppression expires, Riktor rips the chains out, repeating the damage. Skewering an enemy hero grants Riot Shield. Cooldown 110, 95, 80 with the cost of 100. So now we have an idea of what Riktor's kit is. Let's go ahead and jump in the practice range and talk a little bit about itemization, crests, and how to play the hero. All right, here we are in the practice range, and the first thing for any game is selecting your crest. Now, recommended crest for jungle is Occult Crest, but honestly, I really prefer Titan Crest. I don't think that having Tempest is a bad option, so hey, look at maybe your team composition. If you have another frontliner on the team, sure, maybe you can experiment with Tempest if you really want to, or even Obelisk potentially if you want to add a little bit more damage. But personally for me, Riktor, very tank, very frontline focused. We're going to be going the Titan's Crest to lean into Razorback. 9 times out of 10 it's going to be Razorback Titan's Crest. So we got that out of the way, and let's go on ahead and grab some gold, and we're going to talk about itemization. So itemization wise, this hero first and foremost is a tank, right? Like that's just the way that it is. And again, keep in mind, Krashy jungler, we're doing the jungle guide, not talking about offlane itemization. We're not talking about support itemization or anything like that. The first thing you absolutely have to do is get a brimstone. Now, this is how you clear your jungle. Quite frankly, plain and simple.
Quite frankly, this is the best way to clear the jungle. Nobody clears the jungle better than Brimstone, quite frankly.
Okay, sorry that I had to get that out of the way. Now, from here, tank itemization in this game, in my opinion, is very well done. Like, it's very diverse. There's lots of different reasons to pick up different tank items, and you need to read the enemy team comp. So, for example, if there's a really good reason, really good reasons to pick up a Tainted Guard, I definitely recommending going Brimstone straight into Tainted Guard. For me, that could be a Chimera, a Rampage. Any carry is good to build Tainted Guard against anyways, but Chimera, Rampage, and Crunch are kind of like my really big ones for rushing a Tainted Guard. If I see them in a game, usually, I will go straight into Tainted Guard. If you don't feel like you need it, then you can just finish the Fire Blossom. The Fire Blossom is going to bring you great stats. It's a great item. You're going to finish it anyways, but it's really just about where do you want to invest your money early on. So let's say hypothetically we do have one of those scenarios where you want to rush the Tainted Guard. All right, boom, we rush the Tainted Guard, and what follows next? Well, you have a couple of options. Keep in mind, I don't usually tend to pick up Raiment on Riktor, but it's not a bad option. He does have health scaling. He does have a shield that scales off of his health, if I remember that correctly. I know I literally just read it. Yeah, 12% of the maximum health. So it's a really good option. But what I've been doing lately, and I'm struggling to figure this out. I need to like work with someone else to help me math some things out. Is I never really know where I want to put my raiment on certain builds. On some characters I put it earlier, some characters I put it later. But what a big interaction for me has been lately, and I just want to talk about some of the options that you have, is going Lockshaw into Tainted Bastion, which I don't even know why I said the name of Lockshaw. This interaction right here is incredibly strong on tanks. Now, there are other amazing items that I do want to touch on, and the reason why I'm doing this is because we're diversifying our armor types, right? Which is really, really important in jungle. In jungle, you almost, well, really in the game, for tanks and bruisers, you always want to have like one magic armor item at minimum, and then you tend to want a little bit more physical armor and health. So realistically, if I do pick up Tainted Bastion, it probably will be the only magic armor item I need. Maybe I will pick up another one. There's other great magic armor options that I want to talk about for Riktor. I think specifically there's 3 that I really, really like. I think Unbroken Will is amazing against really, really high CC focused teams. This is whenever you're immobilized, you gain 30% increased total physical armor and total magic armor, and then if you're immobilized or displaced, you restore 6% of your maximum health. So lots of healing in Unbroken Will. It's also a very cheap item, so really, really solid pickup. Crystalline Cuirass is a phenomenal item. This has not the most health on it in the world, but it has 70 magic armor, and then it like radiates, pulses that damage off of you whenever you get hit by abilities. This is really good against certain types of heroes. People that are going to jump in and fight you. It's great against Shinbi specifically. It's good against Countess. It's good against a pretty good number of heroes. A little bit more expensive, but a very, very solid item. And then if you want to be a little bit more aggressive, again, let's say you're not the main tank of the team. Like let's say you have like a steel support. You could obviously lean into Flux Matrix, which just has a lot less armor on it, but 350 health. It's got really good haste on it, which is great for Riktor. And then nearby enemy heroes take 15% additional magic damage. So this is like a tank item that's pretty cheap at 2,800 and is going to bring you more damage too. So this is definitely an option that you can pick up. So my biggest thing here is that I set out, especially with tanks, to give you options and tell you how I like to play the heroes, but I don't want to just give you one build that I think that you should build. If I am going to do that, I'll show you one, but it's not pretty much ever super standard. But what it is right now is essentially Fire Blossom. This is kind of my go-to tank build right now: Fire Blossom, Tainted Guard, and Tainted Bastion. Let's talk about this interaction because I've been kind of sitting on it. So Tainted Guard has Blighted Thorns, so when hit by a basic attack, reduce the source's healing by 40% and apply a bleed to them for 3 seconds, which deals magic damage based on your physical armor. So when you are hit with a basic attack, you're blighting them, right? You're giving them blight. Tainted Bastion has a flat 6% damage mitigation, doubled versus targets affected by blight. And Blighted Veil is receiving magic damage, reduces the source's healing by 40%. So this is like the dual tainted option that you can add that essentially makes your damage mitigation on this go up to 12%. Because as they're hitting you with physical abilities and physical auto attacks, it's physical attacks, sorry. As they're hitting you with autos, whether that's bruisers or carries, they're becoming blighted. And then as you're taking damage from blighted, you know, you get this damage mitigation. So you gain 12% damage mitigation doubled versus the targets affected by blighted. So if you have these two together, it essentially keeps Colossus at that 12%. And this is a really great counter option for Countess. It's really, really good against Shinbi. This is really, really good against Sevarog. But in general, it's got 350 health. It's got base health regen and magic armor on it. So this is great for damage mitigation. You pair it with Tainted Guard, and then you're getting that damage mitigation to be doubled. So really, really good tank option. Like I said, if you're not going this route, then going something on Riktor like Dynamo for physical armor, which I guess we can touch on. Dynamo is obviously a really, really great option because this is essentially also going to give you more damage. Is a really, really great physical armor item. Warden's Faith is incredibly strong against carries because this is like the anti-crit item. If you're having a hard time in the front line, Stonewall is a phenomenal option. And then again, even something as simple as just raising your max health and bringing yourself some additional regeneration and healing from Raiment of Renewal is a really phenomenal tank item. So I can put a build in front of you, but I think what's better is to educate you about the items and show you what's an option. There are some other options that like the game recommends, like World Breaker. I almost never build this on Riktor. You know, you're running in, he doesn't have that hard initiation like Sevarog has. I think World Breaker is really good on Sevarog potentially, but even still, I don't always tend to build it on Sevarog, and I don't almost ever build it on Riktor, and I never build Oathkeeper either, or Dreambinder for that sake, for that matter. So really just leaning into the tank and max HP version of a build. So you know, from this build, if I was slotting these three items, I could go into Raiment, and then I could go into Stonewall if I feel like I'm having a hard time on the front line. If I don't feel like I'm having a hard time, maybe I go into Dynamo. Or if, you know, maybe their magic has been, maybe they have like a couple magic dealers, and I'm feeling like, hey, you know what? This is a lot of magic damage I want to deal with, but I also want to bring some damage myself. You can do something like this. I'm going to tell you right now, all of what I'm doing here with these build options is viable. All of it. This is viable. This is viable. This is viable. Like, all of this is viable. You just need health, physical armor, magic armor. Put it together how you want, right? I think leaning in this front three section is fine, but you don't even need to do that either. I mean, you could literally, quite literally, go into this like this and be much more aggressive. If you have another frontliner, this is going to make you a little less tanky, but you can pull it off. So, like I said, think about how you want to build your Riktor for the game, and let's go ahead and talk a little bit about his abilities. So this is really, really simple. I think that this hero's playstyle is very, very easy, but let me go ahead and rank us up. Very, very simple playstyle, but we're going to show a couple of things. I think there's one key thing that Riktor players should know. So obviously, you have your hook. You need to land it. I play on instant cast, so my instant hook is just like, it always throws out. I don't like bait it or anything. But really, all you need to know is, I would say, a couple of things with Riktor. Hook into Q. So that way you hook and silence them instantly. That's going to lock them into a pretty good amount of CC for quite some time. So that's a really, really good way to get ganks off. If you have some kind of CC in the lane, like maybe there's like a Decker stun or a Bellica knockup, you can Bellica knockup, Decker stun into hook, into Q, into ultimate, right? And then you instantly follow that up with your E, and you just start, that's your whole fight, right? You're initiating. That's super, super strong. The next thing that I would say, actually, I'd say there's probably a few things that I want you to know with Riktor. That's like one version of playing the kit out, right? The next version of playing the kit out is essentially, well, I can't really show you because I'm on cooldown. Essentially, when you're going into a fight, like let's say you're walking into a gank or walking into a fight, if you can physically get there first, you can walk into a fight, pop ult, then silence after the ult into a pretty much free hook. That is like playing the kit backwards, essentially. And I'll show that here in just a second as I wait for the cooldown. I really wish that they would add like a button to reset all cooldowns. Who knows? Maybe that could be something that they could add. But really, walking into a fight, if you're coming through a fog wall, you're coming from a flank, you can literally walk into a fight, pop the ult, and then after ult, you silence into hook, or either you can even do that backwards. You can pop the ult into a hook, because as soon as the ult is done, you can throw your hook into a silence. That maybe even be a little bit more guaranteed. So it just depends on the situation of the character. But yeah, you walking into it, you know, you literally throw hook into silence, pop the E, right? Or maybe your E was already on because you used it to run in. And last but not least, which I have to wait the 60 seconds for, and this is absolutely something that you want to be looking for big fights, especially if you have it, is flash ulting. So the best way to play Riktor is not to be someone that's fishing for hooks. You know, you're going to do a healthy amount of that in the early game when you're coming out of jungle looking for ganks, when you're trying to fish for hooks off of the back of somebody else's CC. That's a lot of what you're looking for. A lot of your ganks are going to come down to fishing for hooks, but a lot of your endgame team fights are going to be about walking into the team and flashing into the team to pop your kit. And this is, I truly believe, what sets apart a great Riktor player. If you're playing the endgame and you're dancing and y'all are standing in front of Fangtooth and you throw a hook and you miss, that's just, you're just playing the character wrong, in my opinion. What you really want to be doing is running in, you know, using your corners to block damage, running in and trying to get in there. Or, like I said, the ultimate play is, all right, you're dancing a big fight, maybe, you know, who knows, maybe it's their team across prime, you know, we're around the corner or whatever, and then you ult in, or you flash in, ult in, pop all of your abilities, and boom, you're in the fight. And all the while, you might have your Razorback crest, you turn that on after your ult is over, and that's a huge fight win potential, huge fight swing potential, because it happens so very fast. So friends, that's Riktor. Like I said, make sure you're maxing your right click in the jungle. You want to start with your E, you want to max your right click, Q absolutely comes last, and then put your points into your ultimate. If you have any questions, if I missed anything, let me know in the comment section down below. Drop a like on the video, subscribe for future Predecessor content. As always, be sure to count on one another, tell someone you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.